But now it's like every night you're separate. You're watching shows, different rooms, or if you are together, you're not really connecting. You're, okay, well, I'll sit in here while he watches his show, but I'm going to be shopping on my iPad. And I think in that weekly checkup, making sure you've got that time together scheduled. I mean, and then you take advantage of the opportunity to get there just spontaneous. There'll be small markers along the way. When you have those communications better and you're listening better, sure, you're going to get some perks there. But all that's building the fact of this marriage is exactly what I dreamed it would be.
Today we are looking at the disconnected marriage and how to avoid having a disconnected marriage. If you are new to the show, we drop a new episode every Tuesday, and on the last Tuesday of every month, it is a special guest interview. Hit subscribe in whatever podcast app you're listening so that you can join us and be best buddies with us every week. So, Dr. Kim, what does a disconnected marriage look like?
I think one definition I like is two strangers living under the same roof. And because I think that they're just existing together, because I think that couples that maybe they live and fight all the time together, they're connected, not in a healthy way, but a pretty unhealthy way. But disconnected, I think, is where you're just there. It's a surface relationship. You can say, when you go to the grocery store, do that. I mean, but you're just not communicating much. You're just kind of like, I don't really know you because you haven't really shared anything other than you need bread today, for 20 years. And so to me, that's it, that you're not getting out of marriage what you need. And it's just like, you may not be fighting, but there's nothing there that really is enhancing your life and certainly the marriage and what God's design is.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting that you bring that up because I think it probably there's two different styles or two different personalities. So there's the more passive one that probably is just leading separate lives, like you said. Because my instant thought, because Dylan and I are not passive in our personalities, what I kind of thought about is often fighting, often a lot of miscommunication because you're not on the same page, often a lot of assumptions being made because you're not on the same page, feeling like you're not friends and not knowing what's kind of going on with your spouse. So there's kind of this fighting disconnected marriage, but you're right. There's also this we're just ignoring each other disconnected marriage, and it seems peaceful, but it's not a friendship.
And sometimes I think the things that you were saying about the fighting and the conflict can lead to we're just going to exist together.
Absolutely. It's like a phase. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've tried all this and we're going to just exist together. We're not
too
getting divorced.
Tired to fight.
Yeah, but exactly. Or you've given up. There's no hope. I mean, why?
Yeah.
There's always hope.
So sad. There's always hope.
It is. And those are the ones. And you can almost, honestly, of course, I probably look at people, now people are going to be paranoid when they're around me, but you can tell couples that are connected and those are disconnected. Now, there's probably times people look at us and think they're not connected because we may have just had an argument or something. But in general, I think if people see us out, they can see that we're connected. The way we talk, the way we interact, the way we might hold hands, whatever, that they're going to see there's some connection there. But you can tell those that are just not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So what are some small, subtle habits that people can fall into that lead to disconnection?
I think obviously not having time to connect. We talked about it in an episode on creating margin and creating that time. So I think I think you have to be intentional about it. I think you've got to carve that time out or it doesn't happen. And I think the more it doesn't happen, the farther apart you get. I think not having fun together is one. I think that's one of the things that bonds us together and it makes life enjoyable. And so I think when we're not having fun together, it's not like it's going to crater all of a sudden, but it's just one of those things that takes away. I think not connecting spiritually together. I think we were designed for it to be the three of us, the core of three strands. And so it's the two of us and God connecting. And when we do that consistently, I think we feel an incredible connection both with God and our spouse. And when we don't, I think there's a disconnect there. And then I think, too, I see a lot of couples that just really live separate lives in the evening because, I want to watch this show. Well, I don't really like that show as much, so I'm going to watch another show. So you spend the evening and it kind of goes, maybe it was one show once a week for a while, but now it's like every night you're separate. You're watching shows, different rooms, or if you are together, you're not really connecting. You're, okay, well, I'll sit in here while he watches his show, but I'm going to be shopping on my iPad the whole time. And so you're not, it's just those little things that where those are. I think, we talk a lot about touch points. It's not taking advantage of the touch points that are there every day and not creating time for those to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a really important one that you brought up was the screens thing. So bad habits with screens and technology can lead to disconnection. So I would ask, like, do you have any boundaries set up around your technology and your screens? Do you have any tech-free time? Because I think those are essential if you want a connected marriage, because these screens are addicted.
Yep.
And so bad habits with them will lead to disconnection with the humans, the real life humans in your life. I also think not sharing with your spouse is a big habit. Your spouse asks you how your day was, but you don't really share anything real with them. You just say fine. When you really do need to share with your spouse, you need to be vulnerable with them and real with them. In order for them to know you, you have to let yourself be known. And I think a lot of us stop sharing with our spouse for a myriad of reasons, but I think it's a small, subtle habit that really leads to disconnection.
Absolutely. You come in, you have the same thing. How's your day? Fine. How's your day? Fine. Anything new? No. Anything new with you? No. And sometimes one of you starting to ask some open-ended questions can help too. What was the best thing that happened to you today? Or did you see God at work? How did you see God at work today? Or what did God teach you today? I mean, just asking questions that can get a little conversation going. Now, the other person's got to cooperate because they can say nothing or no, I didn't, But I mean, I think you want it to go deeper than that, be more than that.
Yeah. And I think sometimes there's some good reasons we stop sharing with our spouse. Like maybe our spouse shut us down. Maybe they didn't make us feel safe. But you got to fight for this. And so if that's you, I'd say you need to go to counseling. You need to work through that. You need to get to a place where you feel safe being vulnerable with your spouse again.
Yeah, and I agree. I think when it gets to that point, probably counseling is going to be the best thing to do because it's going to be hard to work out on your own, I think. And so going to counseling, and if you have to go alone for a while, that's okay. The counselor can help you and help you deal with it and give you some ideas, and hopefully your spouse will be willing to come at some point.
Yeah, that's good. I also think another thing that kind of leads to disconnection is just getting wrapped up in our own friendships and our own hobbies outside of our spouse. I think that is a really tempting thing to do, is just if you love a hobby, you're always doing that. Or if you have other friendships maybe of the same sex, and they're just easier to relate with because he's a guy, you're a guy, or, she's a girl and you're a girl, and it's just easier to go there instead of making sure you kind of share things with your spouse first. They're supposed to be your best friend.
Absolutely. I think we talked not too long ago on a podcast about, when you hear your spouse tell somebody else something they haven't told you, and that is hard. You want to be their first go-to, but I think you have a responsibility in that to make the atmosphere there, to create that culture in your marriage that your spouse wants to come to you first, that they want to share with you. And so it's how do you respond when your spouse comes to you? How do you embrace that? Do you make them do you let them know how important that is to you, and that you're thankful that they do that? So it's just another thing that just some little tweaks can make such a difference sometimes. Just saying things a little bit different, saying something you hadn't said instead of just ignoring or, not saying anything.
Yeah, that's good. So what is the danger in a disconnected marriage?
Well, I think when you're disconnected, it raises your vulnerabilities. And I think if I'm not getting needs met that are supposed to be met in a marriage, people look for them to get met outside of marriage. Now, that doesn't mean it's always an affair, but it may be spending more time with the guys because that's easier, or spending more time doing your hobby. Or it could be flirting, or it could be hanging at a bar, or maybe it's you have an affair. I mean, it's just you're so vulnerable in so many ways, and we have these needs within us and that God designed to be met in marriage. And so if they're not, then all of a sudden people have a tendency to look somewhere else. And that's what I say. If you realize that's a situation that you're in, take that energy, talk to your spouse, go to counseling, invest all that energy back in your marriage, because having an affair is not going to make anything better for you or your spouse. And just, spending all your time with your buddies that are ticked at their wives too is not going to help your marriage. It's going to make it worse.
Yeah, that is a good word, Dr. Kim. And I think, another big danger is just like living separate lives. Like that's no fun, like to just be roommates and live separate lives. Like I think all of us should have the goal, like Dr. Kim and Nancy goals, man. Dr. Kim and Nancy have been married for 51 years and they're like doing TikTok dances. Like, come on, like don't we all want that? To still be having fun. Yeah. And you and Nancy are just such an inspiration to us all in that of like, you still are madly in love with each other and like have fun together. And that's what we want. And if you're living separate lives, like that's not going to get you there. You living separate lives today is not going to get you to this connected, fun marriage where you're still enjoying marriage later down the road.
No, and it takes work, and we weren't always there, but we chose to stay in the marriage and work through things, and just to tell people it's worth it. You know, it just you continue to grow, but you have to work at it, and then the results are great. That TikTok dance is so funny. Of my 5 grandkids, we embarrassed 2 of them, and 3 of them thought it was cool, and 3 of them thought it was cool. So,
which ones were embarrassed? What are the ages of the embarrassed ones? Were they 13?
12, yeah, almost
sounds
13,
right.
And almost 16. Yeah.
Yeah. Aw. Well, they shouldn't be embarrassed. I love it. It's so good.
Littlest and oldest were fine with it. So it's funny.
That's so sweet. I love that. Yeah. And you guys got to be checking out these videos too. So if you're not following us already on TikTok, Dr. Kim's on TikTok. It's Kim Kimberling. And then we're on Instagram. There's at Kim Kimberling and also at awesome_marriage. So follow us so that you can see these adorable dancing videos.
Yeah. We have another funny one that's coming up pretty soon. It has to do with ice cream. So it's
nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. Well, how do we avoid falling into a disconnected marriage, Dr. Kim?
You got to want your marriage to be good. You've got, and I think, it seems like I've been talking about this a lot lately, but I think it's so important to have that overall picture of your marriage. If you want an awesome marriage, everything you do each day contributes and moves you forward or backwards in your marriage relationship. And if I keep that, I think that helped me as much as anything. Okay, in the big picture, I want an awesome marriage. So if I yell at her today, that's going to set us back. That's not going to be good. If I say something that's not nice to her, or if I promise to do something for her and I just ignore it and we can say, well, that really wasn't that important to me. All those things are going to pull me back. So I think if you use that filter every day of what am I doing today to keep my marriage moving forward, awesome marriage, it helps you to avoid those things. So I think it's got to be a priority for you. You've got to be intentional. And I think it's something you want to work together as a team, because I think both got to be on hand. I can want to be connected. And if I can't find Nancy, I'm not going to be connected. If she's hiding from me somewhere or she left the house, it's not going to work. And so it's got to be kind of a team deal. Hey, let's carve this time out and let's do this. Let's go exploring. Let's go exploring. Let's go exploring this afternoon, or let's do this or do that. And so those are the things that you keep doing that's what you want to be married for anyway. You didn't get married to somebody to just be miserable or to not have what you wanted in a marriage, not feel connected. That's why you got married, to live a life with someone that you are madly in love with, or were at one point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. I love that. Yeah, I feel like, date nights are a really big part of this. Like if you don't want a disconnected marriage, you got to make time for that. And also like, I feel like the weekly marriage checkup guide, like yes. having a weekly marriage check-in is just like really important. So whatever that looks like, you can create your own questions. We do have a guide that you could grab. We can put that in the show notes, but it doesn't have to be our guide, but just having a time where you actually check in on your marriage and your friendship specifically once a week is important. And that's going to help you not fall into this disconnected marriage category.
Yeah, and I've said this before, but I think I've got probably more couples now than I've ever had doing that, where they come in every 6 months or so. And most of them come in thinking we're doing good, because they really have been intentional. They've worked hard. A lot of them, we've gone through counseling, and so we've gotten to a certain point. But every time they come in, we find something to work on, right? Something I can say, hey, this is an area that I think would be great for you guys to grow in now. I think you've done some other things that really put you in a position to grow this one. And so that's being intentional. It's helping someone else that you trust to come in and say, yeah, you're doing great. I'm so excited what you're doing. Okay, here's another way you can grow. And I think that there's so much benefit in that.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. Well, for the couples that are listening today that are disconnected, what would you recommend their next steps be?
Yeah, you got to talk about it. You've got to you got to find out if your spouse feels the same way you do. And hopefully they do. Hopefully they just don't know what to do, or you think, all those times we think we're going to do something about this, but another week passes and we haven't, or that you've both even said that. So, okay, what's going on? What do we not have? What do we want? What do we want our marriage to look like? Okay, we did really good until we got our 4th kid. And now we're not doing very good. We're just running, crazy all the time. And we've got our kids in 5 different activities each. Okay, bingo, step one, got those back. I mean, what do we do? What do we want our marriage to look like? And what do we need to change to do that? I think doing the weekly checkup is huge. And I think in that weekly checkup, making sure you've got that time together scheduled. I mean, and then you take advantage of the opportunities you get. They're just spontaneous, but schedule those things and hold them sacred. Because I've had couples that say, yeah, we're going to do a date night every Thursday night. Well, we didn't do it for one reason or another, So, and it's usually just do it. Unless you're throwing up, do it, Just do it. And then I think just saying, is it time for us to go to counseling? And can we go? So I think you've got to talk about it. You've got to find out if your spouse is concerned about it too. Sometimes I think, and you and I are talking about a situation before we even went on the air about where one person thinks the marriage is pretty good and the other one doesn't. And so what I say to couples in that, if your spouse is unhappy, you've got to make that important to you, because there's something that's not happening there that probably you can help with and you can take care of to help your spouse feel good about the marriage like you do. And I think women are usually more wanting the relationship to be better than guys. I think we can be content with, we're not fighting and we're having sex and yay, but we're not really connecting on a level that I think our wives teach us how to connect at that level. I think that's the value of a woman in our lives, is that you can teach us things about that. And once we understand that, we realize, oh my gosh, this is really cool. This is really valuable.
Yeah. I think women can also just be like more intuitive and
Absolutely.
just see indicators quicker than guys can when it comes to relationships specifically. So men, listen to your wives.
Yeah, I mean, you guys don't have as much to do as we do. I mean, we got to worry about football games, and we got to worry about basketball games, and we've got to worry about our pickleball game, and all of those things. We have so much that we have in our mind. We just don't have,
Nonsense.
But that's kind of what we do, and because we can rock along pretty easy sometimes. And so
I think you make a good point too. Like you mentioned a bunch of physical activities or watching physical activities. I think men are more physical. And so I think this is a really common issue in Christian marriages. As long as you're having sex, the guy is good. Like he's like, well, obviously our marriage is good if we're having sex, because they're so physical. But it's like, as Christian wives, most Christian wives are like, even if the marriage is not good, they'll usually submit to sex. Like they'll say like, okay, yeah, we'll do this because I know it's important. And I want to be faithful to our covenant, and I want to be like help you in this way. And so for a lot of Christian marriages, like that can end up being a cyclical issue where the husband doesn't see like, oh, my wife's not happy. Our marriage is actually not good because our marriage is not just this one thing.
No, I think you're so right. I think most guys, if sex is good and consistent, it's okay. Mm-hmm. When you may have a wife that's being very obedient and is she, okay, you're having sex, is she getting what you want her to get out of it if you were really connected? And then how much better that, because our wives' greatest sex organ is their mind. And so if they feel loved and cared for and cherished and connected, it's going to be better for both of you in the sexual relationship.
Yeah, definitely. And again, just husbands, listen to your wives.
Wives, going back, Nancy has so much better intuition and discernment and insight than I do on things. And once I learned to value that and listen to it, it's made a huge difference.
There you go. You just heard it from a man. So now you got to listen, dudes.
Right. That's right.
That's right.
Well, and it's okay that you guys are better than that. We don't have to be better in everything. And I think that's an old stigma we have to go, well, our wives couldn't know much about that as we do. Really? Well, God created them relational. So, and they're more nurturing and they're all those kind of things. So listen to your wives.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. How many times can we say that in a podcast? Okay.
I don't know, but we're going to get a lot of nice comments from wives. And I don't know what we're going to get from the guys. The guys are going to say, get off of the air, buddy.
It's all good. It's all good. Well, what are some ways we can build connection into our marriage?
Set aside the time so you've got that. Good communication, sharing fun things. And, there's so many things that happen during my day. And sometimes I'll come home and Nancy always says, how was your day? And we'll start talking about it. And I think, I don't have anything to talk about tonight. But once I get into it, I start telling her about other things. And, in counseling, I don't ever tell her people's names and things like that. But, situation, or if this person we've been praying, sometimes I'll ask my client, do you mind if I have an, she won't know your name, but can she pray about this too? And so then when something cool happens from that, I can share with that to her. So I think it's sharing and beginning to just involve each other in each other's lives. I want to know what to pray about for Nancy today. I want to know how her lunch with so-and-so went. I want to know, this is somebody that was struggling. How's that going now? Those kind of things. Having fun together, like I said, looking for new things to do together. I think we mentioned this. I started playing pickleball. Played last week with my oldest middle grandson and another one of his friends. Had a ball. We had a ball together. I had a ball with them. So looking for new things to do. I think it's good if you can do this, working on projects together. Like when Nancy and I, it doesn't happen a lot of years, but we do the yard stuff when we plant in the spring and the fall. And I have my part in my heart, but we're out there doing it together, and then we sit back and look at, that really looks good, and because she picks it all out, and all I do is put them in the ground and try to put them in a way that they're not going to die. The other thing I think that is so key, and that's learning to listen well to your spouse. If you've got that connection time set aside, time to communicate, and your spouse is talking and you haven't heard a word they say, that's not going to really benefit, because eventually your spouse is going to realize you did not listen to what I said. And so really learning to listen well, to take the time, and I think that's where you've got to get rid of the distractions. Look your spouse in the eye, really listen to what they're saying. And I think all those things build connection. I think it's not just one thing you do. And I think it's just like we said, it can become a lifestyle of connection is really important. And you will never regret that, because you're just going to get closer and closer all the time.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. What are some of yours and Nancy's favorite ways to connect?
I think just our daily things. Now that it started in COVID, when I started working out at home in the morning, and now I've got a virtual trainer that I love. I got to work out with him face to face for a while, and I do virtual with him. And but after I finish work out in the morning, because I get up around 5:30, and so Nancy can get up to around 7. I'll wait till I see that she's awake, and I go in and we just have a morning conversation. We didn't ever have that when I was working out at the gym all the time, because by the time I'd get home, should be up and around, and so we'd say something. It wasn't just the same. So that I love. I think that's been something we both look forward to. End of the workday, we get together. We always have dinner together. That's something we started in college. That once we started really dating, we had to get dinner together probably 9% of the time, the whole 2 years that we dated. We like to explore. I mentioned that together. We'll just get in the car and say, okay, where have we not been in a long time? Let's go see what's going on there, and we'll just go drive around, or we'll try to find something that we've heard about, or we looked for a haunted house one time that we never did find, but because it disappeared, I guess. I don't know. It's haunted houses. Try new things together, and then just. The other thing I think is sometimes we'll just sit on the back porch together, side by side, and not say anything, but we're so connected. Mm-hmm.
Just being with each other.
Yeah, just being with each other that way. So I think all of those things for us really are part of staying connected. What disconnects us is just me. I think for me it's selfishness. I just think, I don't want to spend that time. I'm tired. And God helps me overcome that most of the time.
Yeah, it's work, but it's worth the work. And so I think that's what we have to remember, is that building that connection into our marriage is worth the work. So we've got to be intentional about it. Yeah, for Dylan and I, we love Duke basketball, so that's something fun. Yeah, and we also love going on walks together. So Dylan and I have a really good conversation when, he's moving and he likes to be active. And so us walking together, even if it's, in this season, it's family walks. And so it's like us dragging the kids behind us in a wagon, or like we're chasing after them on their scooters, but him and I are walking side by side, and the kids are hopefully not running in the street, and we're able to converse with each other. And then we also just love having people in our home, so we love having people over, like playing games with them and stuff. And in this season, like one really low maintenance way we do that is we just have people over for dessert. So it's a lot of work to eat with our children because they're maniacs at the dinner table for some reason.
Just their ages.
Sure, that's what we'll go with. And so instead we have people over for dessert, and we come over, we let our kids have a cookie, and then we put our kids to bed, and then we have dessert and are able to hang out with our friends kid-free, and have some like deeper conversation. And that's something that him and I both enjoy with us being extroverts. Good. We love having people around, but I think you got to find that. You got to find what connects you, what helps you build memories. Dylan and I love to build memories together, but we also, because we're extroverts, love to build memories together with other people. Yeah. And so figuring out what that looks like for you.
No, I think so. And I think you do. You got to figure out what works for you. I think it was probably a friend, Les Parrott, that said that first about how he and Leslie connect walking. And I've been aware since he said that to me 4 or 5 years ago that couples that walk together kind of say that there's something, and he felt there was more to it. He said, yes, we don't have distractions, but there was something about the activity part of it, which I think he really liked as a man, that Leslie liked of my husband. I've got his undivided attention now we're walking, and that he said those are our most productive conversations. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And so the chance to try it. If you haven't tried just taking a walk together, maybe do it after dinner. You don't have to walk 5 miles to have a walk. It doesn't have to be an exercise walk. This is more of a connection walk, and just maybe walk a mile, 15 minutes or something like that. And maybe you having a good time, you walk a little longer. But I think walking is a great way to do that. So that's cool that you guys do that. We do that some too. Probably love doing it every time we do it, really.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Well, what are some good markers or indicators that a marriage is connected?
I think I always love the story of the guy that told me that how he did not like his work, loved his wife dearly, had a great marriage, and he'd drive to work at like 10 miles an hour, and then he would come home at 80 miles an hour. And I think when you can't wait to be with your spouse again, when my marriage is my refuge, this is the place, no matter what battles I've fought out there, that I come in, I'm loved, I get recharged, I rest, I'm energized. Those are the kind of things I think when you say, this is the person I want to be with more than anybody else, this is the place I want to be with more than any place else, next to a relationship with God. And then I think that's the goal out there, to do that. Now, I think there'll be small markers along the way. When you have those communications better and you're listening better, sure, you're going to get some perks there. But all that's building the fact of this marriage is exactly what I dreamed it would be. And this is what God wants it to be. And that doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, but it's like, this is a good deal.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. Yeah, I think laughing together is really bonding and a good indicator that you're having fun together. If you're laughing together, clearly you enjoy each other's company and just have a good time together. And then I think thinking of each other throughout the day is important and a good indicator. Like if you're going about your day and you see something funny or something happens, you're like, oh, I can't wait to tell my spouse about this. And then sharing with each other throughout the day, whether it's just, I know some people's work schedules don't allow to actually communicate during the day, but you can send them a quick text probably for most people, even if they're not going to read it till they're done with their work day. But I think that's a big one. And then something I say a lot, but knowing specifically what's going on with your spouse and how to pray for your spouse is a good indicator that you're connected. Mm-hmm. So I'd say those things.
Yeah, I would think, one thing I've thought of recently is I've got some couples that do text a lot during the day when something happens. And I haven't ever said this to anybody, I've just thought about it this morning, is save some of those things when you're face-to-face to tell them, always, you've got things that happen. And so I think sometimes if our spouse is available, we get in the habit of texting that time, which is fine. That's a way to connect. We've talked about that, how important that is. But save some things that you can share face-to-face, because there's a difference when you're face-to-face sharing those things than there is when you're texting your spouse.
Certainly. Yeah, that's good. That's good advice. Absolutely. Well, this has been a cool conversation, just talking about the disconnected marriage, how to avoid it, how to make sure you're having a connected marriage. What final piece of advice do you have for our listeners today, Dr. Kim?
Well, if you're feeling disconnected, I get it. We've all been there. I think different seasons, we've all been there and things like that. The key is you don't want to stay there. And so if you're feeling disconnected, take that first step to sit down with your spouse, share from your heart, not blaming or anything like that, and ask your spouse, can we work on this together? Can we begin to do some of the things that we did so many good things when we first got married, and now with the kids, we just don't do this. Can we try to get back and work together to do that? Take that first step.